Greetings to motorcycle enthusiasts. Today we will be assembling a carburetor for the Yamaha XJ900. And this will be for the 50 Mino model. As usual, I will show you how to do it with one carburetor, and since the others are identical, you can do the same with them. Alright, let's get started. And here are some tools you will need. And today, we will definitely need a small powerful flashlight, a Phillips screwdriver with a head size of 2.03, and several different types of regular screwdrivers. Also, a small Allen tool here because there are Allen screws in the carburetors. And a 14mm wrench, and a pair of long nose pliers, a thin small fuel tube, and a can of silicone spray. Check the video description after watching the clip to get more information about that specific carburetor. Here's one more thing. People often ask if European money is made with this. Well, not enough to get rich and live like Paris Hilton, but they do earn a little when you buy rebuild kits and other parts using our links. And that allows us to continue producing these small videos and maybe grow a bit. And not to brag or boast, but these are top-notch companies selling high-quality products, not some junk made in dubious workshops. So use the links. Help us keep all of this going so we can all maintain these great bikes for years to come. Before we start with the assembly, we'll use this small fuel tube, because I want to check these 3 points where these channels are, well, to ensure they are clean. And we'll start with this one here with the air nozzles. This here is the air nozzle for the nozzle block. So in other words, it's for the mixer with the main nozzle. I want to place it here and then blow through it. I'll do the same here. The air nozzle for the idle nozzle is also there. A lot of air comes through it. And thirdly, here we have this brass tube through which the fuel reaches the man. So let's check here to make sure this is also clean. Alright, so everything works. And now we'll continue with the flow chamber. So here is a small shaft that goes down through this small hole in the flow chamber. And there's a small nozzle at the bottom of the shaft, and I'll show you in a second when I light it. But first let me explain how it all works. So this small unnamed tube here immerses into the shaft through which it even receives fuel. This means that when I put the cap here, it will slide right in. Then down here you can see a hole in the float chamber cap. Fuel passes through this opening into this tap so that one can get fuel from there. To prevent getting too much, there's a nozzle tightly pressed at the bottom of this shaft. I'll light it up. Now you can see how the light passes through, and this is how it should look. Now if the light doesn't pass through, it means the nozzle is clogged and it's not even getting fuel. And you need to check and ensure that all 4 float chamber caps of the carburetor are clean. Now, if you can't clean it with your device or any other cleaning agent, then you need to consult a professional who is an expert in carburetor cleaning. We will start by placing the nozzle block or mixing tubes. Now the main inlet will be screwed in here later, but let's see where the nozzle block fits on the carburetor. And it ends right here. If you look here, you can see a small nub. You can really see it well if you look from the side, and you can also see where this small pin is located. Now the nozzle block has a groove here, and that groove will slide right into this small nub, preventing it from rotating. Now when you tighten the main jet, be careful not to turn the entire nozzle block along with it. Alright, I will turn the carburetor here. And now you can see this large opening down here, where the nozzle block goes, and let me turn it back. So now I've turned it back again, and it's important not to reach inside, but to hold it from the outside. And now I will turn that groove into the correct position. Let me try that again. Thank you. It usually slides in easily, but sometimes you have to carefully turn it again so the author isn't falling right here on this small protrusion. I'll take it here and hold it tightly because you've seen how easy it is, and if I don't hold it tightly, it will slip out again. I want to set the main nozzle. Under the main nozzle, please don't forget there's a small brass disc. It has a defined thickness and sets the main nozzle in the correct position. The main nozzle is then screwed in here. It's a bit difficult, and we have to twist this with our fingers while still holding the mixer at the bottom. Take a screwdriver and secure the main nozzle, but keep in mind that it's a soft material and has a small thread, so don't over-tighten. Here's something to pay attention to. There is an air nozzle right next to the idle gas nozzle that looks similar to the main nozzle. But here you can see the difference in the size of the main nozzle. So the air nozzle is much smaller, so you shouldn't mix up these two. Just something to pay attention to. Next, I will install the idle gas nozzle, and it goes here into this small shaft. We will spray a little silicone inside. Use a 4mm screwdriver and do not use one that is too small for this opening, because a smaller one will damage that small groove in the brass edge. When tightening the screw, apply a little pressure from above. Again, keep in mind that it's a small thread and soft material, so don't overdo it. And now we will take that last ticket, this one here, so the air passes through this channel into the mixer, or in other words, into the nozzle block that holds the main jet. And this small one comes up to here, and the air is drawn in here into the idle jet and the jet is stuck here, and this nozzle fits perfectly here, and into this opening, but you can't mix them, because for example, the main jet wouldn't even fit here. So they are installed and yes, now we are ready to continue. So, the next step will be the float needle valve AUS, which is made of brass, which you will find in the rebuild kit. And as always, you can find rebuild kits. Linked at the bottom of the video description, I've already sprayed a bit of silicone spray here, and that will make the installation easier. It's already installed right here, but I've already sprayed a bit of silicone on it. And now, take this and place it here with the seat facing down, and then I'll massage it a bit until it slides in with a little movement. You will need this small locking plate. It sits on the side here and holds the float needle valve in place. And the whole thing is secured with a small Phillips screw, for which you will need a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Go ahead and tighten it. And now this float needle valve seat here, or this brass inlet, is fully assembled. And now we will proceed with the float, as well as the float needle valve. And this is what it looks like when it's new. But take a look at this small tab here on the float. This one here in the middle, this is where the float needle valve will be attached. So make sure this one is not too bent. Check the video description where you can find information about the float position. And now we will attach the float needle valve here. It has this small wire clip, as you can see. And this wire clip must be threaded through the front part here, allowing it to hang from it. To prevent sticking, I recommend spraying a little silicone spray here until the fuel starts flowing through it. Now I will carefully study this through. This must slide here, and the float must enter this small frame. Now the last part is to push this small needle through here, and it will hold the float in place. And make sure, maybe do it a few times. The important part here is to ensure that the needle slides very easily. Now we will insert that small needle here. If it doesn't go in easily, sand the small needle a bit. Now these two holders are very delicate and can easily break, so handle them carefully. Now the needle and holders are then kept in place with the float chamber cover, and in this way the needle cannot fall out. So now that you have adjusted the position of the float, you can place the cover. And we hope that you have already checked if the shaft here in the cover is cleaned of any debris, and also that you have installed a new gasket from the rebuild kit. Now you can proceed to carefully mount the cover and ensure that the tube slides into the shaft. Something got a little stuck here, but now it's working. Now just go ahead and put in these 4 bolts and tighten them. I put new Allen bolts here because the old ones were bad. They weren't good and they were ugly, so I replaced them. We will move on to the slider. Look inside. Here you can see in the middle, there's that small hole and the partial load needle will be placed through it. And right next to it, there's a small opening, and I'll show you something important about it. At the bottom of the partial load needle, there is a plastic disc. And if you look carefully, you can see a really small nub there. Yes, I think you can see it clearly. And that small nub must slide right into this small indentation. Here we have a brand new partial load needle from the rebuild kit, and the clip is carefully positioned exactly in the middle. And now I will place this small plastic disc with this small nub facing downwards. I will attach it and then see where this opening is. So we will turn this to match. I will let it slide in here. Now we will try to very carefully turn this partial load needle here at the bottom, and you will know when it's in because it will no longer be able to slip out of place. Now we will place this small spring here on top. Then we will place the small perforated plate here on top. Sometimes it needs a little shake. If you look closely, you can see that these holes are arranged differently from the edge. So the holes that are farthest from the edge are the holes for these 2 screws. This will be important because it won't fit in just any 2 ways. One of these 2 holes is covered, and the vacuum then passes through the other one above the membrane. And now we have this small disc. Oops, I turned this the wrong way. The spring will come out again, and the disc goes underneath here. So the washer will go right here on top. That's how it will go. We will now add the spring, and that's where it belongs. And now this small perforated plate needs to go on top. As I said, you need to shake it a little and then put the screws in, which can sometimes be a challenge. I will try to hold it like this and see if I can put these screws in. And you can turn it like this. And now you can see that the holes where you should go are dark. If you look at the bottom, you can see that the opening is covered. A magnetic screwdriver is really useful here, and I need to magnetize this one a bit more so it will work better. But I will go ahead and put these 2 screws in, and then we will continue. Here's a small suggestion. I just slightly tightened the left screw and then I succeeded. Tighten this one here with needle nose pliers when you request these screws. There's always a risk that they might be improperly inserted right from the start, which will damage them. Therefore, it would be good to turn them in the opposite direction, wait for that small click, and then screw them in the right direction. This will reduce the chance of them getting damaged. And so, continue and tighten them. And now this slide is completely assembled. And this small opening here, well, it must remain open. And now we will continue with this fully assembled slide. And if I haven't already mentioned, just check that membrane for any damage. Now we can proceed and place that slide as you can see here. Put a little silicone there. And then the partial load needle must go down and hit the mixing tube very carefully. Here's something else to pay attention to, and that's this small indentation here in the casing. The diaphragm or membrane has a corresponding small plug, so carefully turn it until it fits inside. And now you can insert that membrane into this groove here. And the next thing we'll do is place this spring here. The spring must be positioned in this small groove here to prevent it from popping out. So position it correctly and then place the cover over it. If you're wondering why the covers are chrome plated on the outside and not on the inside, well, they wanted to save money. They only made the outside look nice. The insides of the covers aren't visible, so who cares? Press here with your thumb and now place these 4 pieces. They are usually Phillips screws. Just tighten them. All right, the next thing we'll do is the air mixture screw. Here's the new one. This is the old one, and I'll show you the sequence. 1, there's the air mixture screw, then the spring, steel washer, a U-ring. And here the air mixture screw fits into the carburetor. I will hold the carburetor in such a way that I can easily push the air mixture screw horizontally, and that way nothing will fall off by itself. And spray a little silicone inside before I put it in. So screw the air mixture screw all the way in until it stops, and don't overdo it, otherwise the tip will break. After it stops, carefully turn it in the opposite direction a few turns, and then it should be set, as described in the video description below. And now we will set the choke. It is located here on the side in this opening, and I have also sprayed it with silicone. You can simply screw the top part of the choke here. It really works well with these carbs. For this, we will use a 14mm wrench and tighten it. And one more thing, the choke pistons are all here now, but also watch the disassembly video because if you don't separate the carburetors, you won't be able to remove the choke pistons. All of this is explained in the disassembly video. And there I show you how to separate all the carbs. And keep in mind that the O-rings here on this piece and also the fuel pipe connectors need to be replaced. They are included in the rebuild kit, just so you know. And now it's time to assemble the choke mechanism. I will put these small parts aside in this small cover. That way I won't lose them. And here we have a linkage. And it has 4 indentations where these activation levers are attached, and they are the ones that move the choke pistons. So when I turn this around, you can see the indentations, or the back side of the indentations, and then it ends here. And there is only one place where it ends. And then this small bearing here, 2 small bearings, and it presses this rod so it doesn't even go back. So these bearings as well as the springs go here. And there are 2 additional holes for that. So here and here. One small spring that goes here, and now the small bearing goes right there. You have to be careful not to lose it. It's best to set the carburetor to rich. And here you have an excellent view of where that small bearing is located down there. And now what you need to do is, well, you have to do it from all sides. And it's best not to move the carburetor while doing it. And now we can go ahead and attach that control rod or linkage right there. It's the one with 4 indentations facing upwards. Now take one small control lever or actuator and place it here. And then this small screw on the actuator also needs to be facing you. and then the rod can be twisted. So you do this for each of them. And here we continue with the next one. You can already see the spring in the ball here. I've already sprayed everything with silicone. This must be inserted very carefully. You might also feel a little resistance. Also listen closely because you might hear if the ball or spring slips out. Again, place the lever and then pull the rod. And be careful when doing this. And here's the last one. And always twist the rod a little. That way it goes in more easily. And this small screw here must be below that indentation. Now it clicked into place right here. And remember these small indentations here on the back that now sit in place either at one of these 2 points with the spring and that small bearing. Now I will turn the carburetor again. And you can carefully place that small screw into this small indentation. But be careful when placing it. It always has to be well positioned. But as I said, don't overdo it. And you need to do this for all 4. Alright, the mechanism is fully assembled and you can test it. It might not move very smoothly. It might be a bit difficult to move, and that's because the springs and pressure balls press the IU rod at both ends. And that's how it is, if it's not in the off position. For now, we have somewhat left out the mounting rail to make access to the float chamber easier, and we do this for disassembly. So, this goes back here. In other words, this small screw will press this lever right here. And then you can go ahead and return those screws. Just a small suggestion. The screws are in, but I haven't tightened them. And also here on this part, they are not tightened yet. I just kind of screwed them in by hand. So now take that carburetor and find a flat surface where you can place it, like on these small brackets. And that way you can press down on it. If you need to, you can ask a friend or someone to help you. That would probably be a good idea. So first align the carburetors, and then you can tighten all those screws. Alright, we've gone through this, haven't we? So do you know what you need to do? Subscribe to the channel, support us. It's just a small button you need to press. It really helps us and we can continue with our great videos that will help you maintain those great bikes for years.